Hey everyone, it's Leah and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm making another Christmas card. It is the season. I decided to pull out the Frosty Fairy Friends from Fawn. I really love this stamp set and it's very popular. I always get good feedback when I use it. So I'm really excited to make this card for Christmas. So this is a look at the stamp set from Fawn. I'm also going to use the background stamp from the Snow Cool stamp set, also from Fawn. I really like that falling snow. And now I have an A2 size folded card. I'm doing a horizontal layout and then a piece of mixed media cardstock that's cut a little bit smaller than that A2 size. I have some distress ink in squeezed lemonade and cracked pistachio to use for the background, and then my Recollections embossing glitter in gold. And this is the bright glittery gold. And I also am going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink for the Copic coloring and my acrylic stamp block just to put everything together. And these are my blending tools I'll use for the distress inks using sponge foam discs. I'm going to begin using some clear embossing powder and the Versamark ink, which helps do the embossing. This was something I decided just at the last minute to try doing. And so I'm going to use a piece of just regular printer paper and fold it in half to catch the embossing powder. And then I'm going to bring in the mixed media cardstock and I'm going to coat that first with some kitchen flour just so that when I put that embossing ink down, it doesn't catch the embossing powder where I don't want it to catch. So I'm going to start with the snow background here, and this is from the Snow Cool stamp set. So using the Versamark ink, it's clear but it's sticky, so it works really well for the embossing powder. I'm going to put that down, and I need to stamp this twice because it's a little bit shorter than that A2 size card width, but that's okay. And so I can see where I've stamped it, and now I'm going to put the clear embossing powder on. As an alternative, you could also use white embossing powder if you didn't have clear. So I'm just shaking that off. That's my favorite part of doing embossing. I love just seeing the impression come to life. Even if it is in clear powder, you can still kind of see it a little bit. And then I'm just going to run this under my heat tool off camera. So you can see in the light there, the clear, so it just gives it a little bit of subtle snow effect in the background, not too dramatic. So I'm going to come in with a cracked pistachio and the squeezed lemonade. Now my previous Christmas card I made was red, so I did want to focus on something green, and so I just love yellow. It's my favorite color, and so I thought it would be a nice mix with this green background. And so I'm going to do a diagonal blend on this card. So I'm starting with the corners, and I'm going to bring in the green on the corners first, and then work my way towards the center, and then bring in that squeezed lemonade. So not a lot of embossing ink is required here, and I did want to keep it kind of light and more whimsical and soft looking. I've put down a piece of spare mixed media strip on the left under my hand just so I don't put any fingerprints in that ink because it does take a little bit to dry. I find it takes a few minutes, so I don't want to make any markings in it. So you can see the diagonal lines starting to appear as I put those ink colors down. And I thought that this would just help with the composition overall with how I want to lay out the overall scene. So I thought that the diagonal background would help enhance that a bit. So very light, not a lot of embossing ink, but I really like how this looks. It's so pretty together. I just love yellow, and incorporating it into a Christmas card is really exciting. Now I'm going to work on my composition next, and I just want to put all the stamps down and make sure that my placement is even. I have in my head how I want this to look, and so I just want to make sure that everything is spaced out correctly. I don't want to end up with too much space on one side or not enough space. So I kind of want to keep that diagonal layout going, just corner to corner. And so I have everything laid out. I'm going to take a quick picture with my phone. I find this helps if I need to reference it later, just to remember where I had those stamps laid out. And so I'm preparing the surface again with kitchen flour, and then I'm going to come in and emboss on top of this embossing. So now that I have that stamp there, I'm going to come in with that gold tinsel embossing powder and put that over top. And this embossing powder is gorgeous. It is from Recollections, which is a Michael's brand. And I'll put the exact name in the description below. But I really love how this looks, and especially on that green and yellow background, it just matches those warm tones really nicely. So I'm going to build up the corners. I just want to bring in some foliage and kind of bring in some of the just Christmassy looking branches and all the little elements that are included in that Frosty Fairy Friends stamp set. So I'm just working up the corners. I want to keep it balanced, but I also want it to look full. I don't want it to look sparse. So right now it looks a little sparse. So I'm coming in with this little tiny branch. It's like an evergreen branch, and just filling in the spaces. Now I haven't embossed any of the gold yet, so I am embossing or stamping over the other stamps. When I did this, I noticed that it erased the stamp area that I had before, but it just worked perfect over top. So it was all good. So now I have heat set that top left corner, and now I'm going to work on my bottom right corner. So again, I'm starting with these berry branches first, and they're the biggest ones, so I'm kind of picking the placement with those and then building around those. So I'll put the embossing powder on just to make it so that I can see where they are. Being careful not to touch the area because I have prepped it with kitchen flour, so I don't want to get any oils from my hands in that area. So now I'm coming in with the bigger evergreen branch and building up the space and working out from the base of those berries, and then coming in with that tiny branch again and just filling in spaces. If it does overlap somewhere I've put powder, it's okay because I can re-stamp and reapply powder in that area, and it will work. And so just finding the last bit, I really want the concentration of stamps to be in those corners. Especially at the bottom, because it's the bottom of the card, you want that to feel very weighted as well. So here's a look at the heat embossing. After I've run it under my heat tool, it looks really good. You can see the glitter is set, and it's got such a beautiful shine and shimmer to it. I just love it so much. It looks so pretty. So now I'm going to work on coloring my fairies. Getting those stamped out. Now I'm stamping this on Nina Solar White cardstock. I really like to use that for the Copic coloring. I find the Copic markers blend really nicely on this cardstock, and I like that it's a bright white. I really like the crispness of the white cardstock, and it makes the colors look very pure that way too. So now I'm just coming in to color the fairies with the Copic colors. I'll list all of the colors I use in the description below in case you're curious about any of the shades that I'm using. Now I'm coloring both fairies the same. I didn't want to make them too different and add too many colors to the card. I wanted it to feel pretty balanced and not too busy. So even down to my fairies' hair color, I thought about doing them different, but then I didn't want to add it too much busyness to the scene. So I just kept them both kind of a blonde color. And so when I'm coloring the fairies' hair, I like to start light and then work up the darker colors. And on the left fairy, she has sort of a crown coming down, or her hairline is down from the crown on the left side. And then on the right side fairy, I didn't give her a crown line, I just kind of brought the hair out from the base of her ponytail and then just feathered up from the bottom as well, just to create those shadows. Now to make this super Christmassy, I did red and green for the clothes and accessories on the fairies. My thought when I started this card is I just wanted to make the fairies wearing green velvet. That was my inspiration for this entire card, just started from that idea. And so I really pondered about this for a while, and it's kind of a color that I don't normally work with. And so it took me a while to figure this card out, but then when I did, I was really happy with how it all kind of came together. But my motivation was just starting with green velvet on my fairies. I have done other cards before where I've done red velvet and white fur accessories, which looks really sweet as well. But I really wanted to bring in the green. So it was nice to bring in red and green as well, and then get all those Christmas colors together, and with that warm background, it just pulled it all together nicely. So I have these both colored the exact same, and I'm just going to pop these out. Off camera, I did that with my Sizzix and the die cuts. And now I'm going to work on my composition one more time. I'm going to figure out my stamping. And initially I wanted to do a green emboss on my sentiment, but the problem I found is that because I had stamped my fairies in black ink, there was no other black ink in the scene, and I didn't want them to feel very stark against everything else that was kind of a soft coloring, especially that background. And if I did the sentiment in green, it would have blended more into the background than stand out. So I decided to go with black for the sentiment as well, and that kind of pulls in the fairies, and then they become the foreground element. So I stamped the sentiment all together. I did stamp over top of one of the little snowflakes in the background that was clear embossed, so I just came in with a Sharpie marker and just touched that up. Very, very simple. Now I'm going to put my fairies together with some foam tape. I kind of want them to be flying in the scene, so a little bit lifted off the card. And overall, I really like how this composition is working. It starts at the top left and then leads across the page down into the bottom right. So I'm just trying to find the position for my fairy there, and I felt that she was better balanced in the top right area of the sentiment. So now I'm ready to put this onto my card base, and again I have it just, the main art is cut a little bit smaller, and that kind of creates a white border around the edge just to frame the artwork a little bit. So I'm just holding this in place with my knife so I can just pivot it a little bit until I get it perfectly center or where I feel that it should be. As a final accent, I'm coming in with my Wink of Stella brush pen in clear glitter and adding some glitter to the wings. This helps bring a little bit more sparkle to the scene to match that gold embossing. And this card is all done. I had so much fun creating this card, and I kind of stressed about it for a while trying to figure out the colors and the balance, but I really like how it came out. And a lot of embossing, but a lot of fun as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you're notified as I post more videos to my channel. Thank you so much for watching.